Welcome back. On this episode, I'm joined by Chris Smith, owner of Zunzis and Zunzibar, two brands that are absolutely shaking up the restaurant world by refusing to follow some of the industry's broken rules. Chris has an amazing story starting off as a young franchisee in the Five Guys network. And now he talks a lot about really cool concepts and why the industry is broken on some of his platforms. So in this episode, we learn a lot about his experience and what he's doing to help his brand stand out. Some of those things are his 26X philosophy and why he believes great relationships, not revenue, is the key to growth. I hope you enjoy. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Man, I am living the dream. Daniel, how are you?
I'm doing well. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about for this episode, and I have so many ideas. I think we can take it in so many different directions. You guys are, I think, pioneering on a lot of fronts and also very bold on other fronts as well. You guys are doing things that I think are a little bit unorthodox. So we'll dive into those topics, but I like to always start off by getting a chance for my audience to learn a little bit about yourself. So I know that you actually started in the restaurant industry as a franchisee before now your current venture. You mind telling our audience a little bit more about how you got into this space?
That's right. So, the restaurant business is one of those industries where there's always a story of how you got into the business. And, with our podcast, the Shit Yeah Show, it's always the first thing I start in. So I got in the restaurant business right out of college. I was going to the University of Florida, getting a finance degree. And kind of the long story short is, pitched the idea to my parents to open Five Guys instead of law school, signed a franchise agreement for 7 locations while I was wrapping up my junior year of college, and became a franchisee. And then a year after graduating, ended up opening my first location, had 3 by 23. It was baptism by fire. Luckily, we picked a unicorn brand like Five Guys.
I was going to say
that really at that time, if you didn't know what you were doing, you could open up and make money if you had a good location and were focused on, quality service and cleanliness. And so was certainly blessed to have picked that brand to have my entry into the restaurant business.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. I think this was around, what year was this when you entered the Five Guys space?
Yeah, that was 06, 07.
06, 07.
So first location opened in 07.
Yeah, and around that time, I think Five Guys was starting to explode. And you were with Five Guys for about how many years then?
Yeah, so from 07 through 2017 was when I sold the 7 locations that we ended up opening. And in that time, I was in the process of completing that agreement. And that's how I found Zunzi's as a fan favorite in Savannah. And kind of that first visit there, I said, someday I'm going to buy that restaurant and franchise it one day. And it snowballed into... That's what we're doing today.
Well, so tell me, like, what did you see at Zunzi's? I know you mentioned you were going there all the time. You loved the South African iced tea, and it was a fan favorite. You also mentioned that the owners were a little bit interesting. What did you see in that moment? You were like, shit, yeah, I'm gonna invest in this brand. Like, it seems like a very it was a one restaurant at the time. What convinced you to invest and to take over?
Yeah, so I was just opening my second location, so I was moving to Savannah, and everyone was saying you got to go check out this little hole-in-the-wall dive sandwich shop called Zunzi's. And I walked up and there was a line of probably 50 people wrapped around the building.
That's a good sign.
And, it's always a good sign. Probably half the time the line was long because the owners were fighting and they were just doing what owners do sometimes in a husband and wife duo. And so it's kind of like the soup Nazi from Seinfeld, kind of that feel.
Okay.
But, I waited in line. They were given free samples of the tea and the chicken and the sauces. And so I got the famous Conquistador, the South African tea, and walked around this old patio, passing dumpsters and grease traps that weren't well maintained, patio furniture that was all mixed and matched. Cheap $40 rainbow umbrellas that were designed for the beach that were popped in there, and had the best sandwich of my life, the best tea of my life. Everyone was saying shit yeah, which is our motto. And it just kind of came out. I looked around and I was like, man, the 3 things that Five Guys would talk about of being successful in this business were concept, location, and operations. Is have a great concept, open in a great location, and run great operations. And if you consistently do that, then you should do well. And it really was a unique concept that everyone was saying, shit, yeah. So that was good, the team and the fans. And it wasn't a great location. And certainly it wasn't great operations that were running. But the end product was a really happy team and a really happy customer base that kept on growing, and people were willing to wait in line for 20, 30, 40 minutes, sometimes over an hour for a sandwich in the Savannah heat.
What was the first thing you did, once you took over? What was your first agenda on the list?
Yes, the first thing I did was I said, guys, my number one goal of this year is to not lose any of you in the first year. It was let's retain the staff. I felt like they were the magic of it. And especially because they really had no systems or processes. So we had kept Johnny and Gabby on for a year as part of our deal, and they could be resources. But when you're taking over a business that's so closely held and they're not planning on continuing in the business as active partners, that you kind of want to rip that Band-Aid off and take it over. And so that's what we did. And we really succeeded. I think we still have some people that are from that original group that, they kind of come in and out of the business. It's funny. They'll go in and grow somewhere else and they come back. And that's probably one of the fun parts of the business.
Yep. I know that you mentioned you brought with you, or maybe this was a couple years after you bought the business, you brought with you a team of Five Guys operators, right? People that we would just call them like excellent operators, people that knew the business, knew how to scale, knew how to run it right. What was that team like, and who did you bring in to operationalize the business?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we still had the Five Guys restaurants. So I had some infrastructure that we could use to support that. We also had investors that were partners. They were running the back end in their family office. So I didn't have to do the accounting and all of that. I was able to focus on the operations and try to do that. They were also Five Guys franchisees. So it just kind of happened to be that they were based in Savannah, and was able to do that with them. But, Five Guys has a very high standard of quality service, cleanliness. They're really known for that. And so that standard, it made sense for us to try to bring in some people. And so we brought some of our best people from our Five Guys locations. And then most recent, in the past 2.5 years, we partnered with the largest Five Guys franchisee. So he's a small investor with us. And then their operator is now our COO. And so great pedigree, 10 years corporate McDonald's, and then 16 years with RTM, which was the largest Arby's franchisee. He grew with them from 8 locations, had I think 1,200, sold to Roar Capital, and then was with the Five Guys franchisee and opened over 100 locations over a 10-year period, and then sold back to corporate like we did. So also brought on their controller to run our accounting and finances to really free me up to be what I want to be doing, which is really doing this, is being able to talk about why we're in business. And our vision statement is the restaurant business sucks. We're here to change it, and really doing things differently.
Yeah, that was a perfect transition. But you're not going to escape without me double tapping on that. Why does the restaurant industry suck? And why is that your motto?
Man, the restaurant business sucks, in my opinion, because it will take everything from you if you let it. It's the most demanding business, mind, body, spirit. There aren't many businesses that you can work open to close 7 days a week. You really can't and not succeed, right? If you think about a lot of businesses that you can just hustle harder.
Sweat equity.
And just do it. But be it an online business or even some retail, whatever it is, the restaurant business, you really can't outwork the restaurant business. It will wear you down. And I hate to say it, it kills people. And what it does, it can put people into addiction. It can cause people to lose important relationships because of it. It's, it's a business for a lot of people of first jobs and second chances. And so you have that dynamic of it. For me personally, though, is I was so committed after my first location. I actually said in my Brunswick, Georgia location, I said, I will die before I fail in this restaurant. And I'd worked, I think, 2 years open to close. I had locations that were 100 miles apart, driving to all of them every day because I didn't have infrastructure. And so that was an experience I'm so happy I won't hopefully ever have to do again. Right. But it taught me a lot about how hard the restaurant business can be, and specifically for franchisees. I was a franchisee of a brand, and luckily I picked a great one. But the franchise industry is not for the faint of heart. There's no guarantees in this business. And that's why for us, I would never sell to a franchisee like myself, because for everyone that, and unfortunately there's horror stories of situations where you've got someone who their family may have some money, and there's someone who might be a little hungry to be an entrepreneur, and they go into that business, and you've got to fully commit, right? You've got to burn the boat on it. Right. And be willing to sacrifice a lot if you don't have the professional organization background to do that we now have. And, you really don't know what you don't know. And that was my situation. At least I knew how to make perfect burgers and fries for my training while I was in college.
So it sounds like you have to be a little bit masochistic, and you have to have grit. There has to be some unreasonable incentive for you to be in the industry beyond just money, right? I've talked to so many franchisees, and some of these people are very hands off, right? They come in with a pool of money and they see it as a business that's profitable, that's in some cases is very much recession proof, right? If we're talking like QSR, fast casual, in some cases, very much recession proof. And they see it as just a business to bring them cash flow and they can sail with the wind. But in most cases, from the best operators I've talked to, they actually do get their hands dirty and they actually go in and try to fix some of those imperfect aspects of the restaurant. And one thing that really got me was when in our first conversation, you brought up the six, I don't know what you call it, six pillars, six stakeholders. Yeah, I know you have a good way of branding everything. Tell us more about those six stakeholders. And then on the back of you saying the restaurant industry sucks, how do you make it better for yourself and for your team?
Right. Yeah. So from right off the bat, like I said it earlier, my first visit, I recognized that the team was saying shit yeah, and the customers were saying shit yeah. And you think about the value of a motto and what that is. If McDonald's had everybody saying I'm loving it, right? Or you'd go there and at Burger King you said I'm having it my way today. If that's just still their thing, I don't know. Ours was shit yeah, and it was so good, and the experience overall, it was that. And so I recognized that, and that became really the goal of the company, and it became the brand promise to our team first, and then our fans, that we want when they engage in our business, we want them to leave saying or feeling a shit yeah experience, where it was just we exceeded expectations. You can't really put a finger on it, but you want to go back and hopefully tell somebody about it. And so that's evolved now into our 6 stakeholder promise, starting with our team, then our franchisees, our fans, community, vendors, investors. And in order, we want to make decisions based off of our shit yeah promise that if we're going to roll something out, our team needs to buy in, right? Our franchisees, if they're bought in, our fans probably will, right? And then if all 3 of those are doing well, then it's going to be good for our community because we have a successful business, right? And then you roll up and our vendors are happy and they're growing alongside of us. And then you have investors that are happy as well. And it's not an easy thing. I think most restaurants are really focused on their customers, right? The ones that are more successful than that are focused on their customers and their team, and usually their team first, because they realize you got to take care of them and they'll take care of your customers. Right. And then it goes all the way up to then the communities you serve and all the way up to the investors. A lot of times now with private equity, a founder gets in the business to serve people. It's a people serving people. And then as people get in for the money as the main reason they're getting in it, absolutely should be making money in this business. It's a high risk, high return business. So it needs to be there to offset that risk. But a lot of people get into it and it ends up being numbers serving numbers. And then it gets into less numbers, less employee numbers, right, serving more tickets, more customer tickets, and to the point that the magic is lost. And I think that's, in this day and age of technology and tech stacks and everything that goes into it, so critical to utilize and maximize that in the back of the house of your business to free up the front of the house so you can really focus on the experience. And with our 2 brands, we have Zunzi's, which is our takeout, delivery, and catering, really expedient model, more of a get in, get out quick, where execution is the experience. Right. Of course, we want you to be saying shit yeah with that small interaction that we have and have fun with you there. But Zunzibar takes the complete opposite. It takes the award-winning food. Now we've added seafood to it. You've got a full high-end bar. So it's a seafood and surf bar that we've evolved into with our award-winning sandwiches, wings and chips, live music. It's really experience-focused. And it's a place that we want you to hang out and have a good time. And so we kind of go to those 2 extremes with that business model. Instead of trying to blur the lines of, hey, we're a fast casual that's so experience focused. No, you're fast casual and you want to get in and out and have it correct at a good price. Right. And then we have a full service model that really is a place that you want to go and have a good time and hang out.
Right. And I actually really like that approach. It's like, understand the game that you're in, right? If you're in fast casual and if you're in QSR, the execution is king, and you might not have as much resources or the bandwidth or the pool of talent in order to deliver a more refined experience. But then when you're now also expanding with Zunzibar, and I want to ask you more about your growth plans around that business, but that allows you to also have this like higher AUV, more touch points with the customers, allows you to brand it into something really unique. So when you're running these 2 dual concepts, tell me, when did Zunzibar come to be? And then how are you kind of managing these 2 experiences while also rolling it up towards this brand that you created?
Yeah, so Zunzi's is a 20-year-old brand now. It started in 2005. So this year's our 20th anniversary, which is pretty cool. I've had it 10 years. Johnny and Gabby, the original founders, had it 10 years. The Zunzibar concept was really birthed while I was in the Virgin Islands, and this was in 2017. I had sold my five guys, and I was like, how cool would it be if we had a beach bar someday? And our brand already had rainbow umbrellas. And so I had created this idea. Zunzi's was a name after Zanzibar. The original founder wanted to always live like he was on vacation, so he named it after that, his favorite place to vacation when he lived in South Africa. The rainbow umbrellas, right? That whole vibe was already there. And then COVID came, and we were losing our lease of our original location. The landlord didn't want a restaurant there. It was too busy. And it was COVID. It was like the world was ending. It's like, if we're going to have to expand, let's go ahead and pivot and let's go into it. Let's add alcohol to it. Let's take the award-winning food, keep it very simple, a fast casual food model, but lead with an elevated beach bar experience, really a highbrow, lowbrow. And it took us from 1.5 million to over 3 million overnight. And now with the innovation, I believe the key to business really has always been, but especially now, is innovation and marketing.
Right.
Are really the two places that you have to be constantly engaged in. And that's why I have the podcast, the Shit Yeah Show, is if I'm asking and interviewing stakeholders, my team, other team members, franchisees, fans, that, I just had a fan from our Hilton Head location come on, and amazing feedback. We turned around a terrible experience twice. Terrible from his experience, right? He's a very, I think we're actually going to end up hiring him to be like a guest experience, like supervisor or something. But if I'm constantly asking the questions, what sucks about the business? What do we love about it? And then what should we be doing, or what are we doing to change it? Then I'll be the person in the company who always knows where we need to move the ball, right? And just, shift a little bit here and there. It's not about these big shifts. If you're constantly evolving a little bit every day in your personal life or in your business, then you're not having to make those big brand shifts that are there. You're just moving with the times.
Got it. And what is your growth strategy? Are you franchising, or are you opening up your own stores? Like, what is the path that you see? And then if you are franchising, what types of operators are you looking for? You brought up earlier in the episode, you don't want someone like yourself. What is the right person, do you think, that would mesh with your brand?
Yeah, so in franchising, you have something called a discovery day. And a good buddy, Jeff Sinelli, he's probably the only one that I know who's renamed it something different. He calls it a leap day. He inspired me to change that. And so we call it shooting the shit, where you'll come in for 2 days and we're just going to shoot the shit. We're not going to pretend to be something that we're not. Right. We're a very entrepreneurial, growing company, and we're busting at the seams in our office, and we've got great people coming on board. It's really important that I think we align on 4 things, right? Our identity, in regards to, we understand what we are as a brand and that it fits them, that they understand who we serve, that number one, we're here to serve our team and the service industry. There's a lot of things that we do for the service industry, like half off 7 days a week for service industry. They come in and get food half off 7 days a week, right? I'm not trying to make money off the service industry. It's also a great way to meet like-minded service industry people. After that, aligned on values. And then finally, they have to have discipline. And so that's kind of what we call the launching pad of the rocket ship, is if you keep all 4 of those intact, then as that rocket ship takes off, hopefully it won't blow up because you're aligned on all of those. And discipline is really the key that that keeps it intact. And for me, as I think our team calls me the visionary, fearless leader founder, it's funny sometimes I've paired that up with Kevin Nelson, who's our COO. He's just so disciplined, rock solid, has those disciplines in place that we can both be on the kind of both ends of that, and combined, it's rocket fuel for us. And there's a great book by EOS, the entrepreneurship operating system called Rocket Fuel, that allows us to work together. So, for the growth, and that's the kind of the franchisee, how we can stay intact. The ideal franchisee is going to be someone that's already operating a minimum of probably 10 restaurants, that they're really running this as a main business. They're not owner operators. They're business owners. They have an org chart in place. We're going about it very different. Our first 2 franchisees, we sold 17 locations last year in Florida, 10 in Orlando, 7 on the West Coast. We've got 3 or 4 locations opening this year: Tampa, the Villages, Jacksonville, Jupiter, Orlando, and probably 5 to 10 looking more next year or more. The franchisees we have to have, they've got to check that box. And so we also don't want them to be too big. We don't want the tail wagging the dog.
Gotcha.
To where they're coming in.
And they have all the demands.
In those situations,
and they have, they're telling you kind of how to run the business.
That's right. And so we want to learn. I believe everybody adds value.
Excellent.
And if we're aligned on values, remember, they're buying into the belief that the shit yeah experience is the key. And so that's going to evolve over time. Things move very, very fast. But we're doing it differently. So those two franchisees have a management agreement in place. So we're actually running them for them because we didn't want to just jump into franchising and say, here's the ops manual, and then you got to deal with that. It allows us to roll into it and not as big of a jump from that relationship, because I believe that relationships are the key to life and business. It's our X factor of our business, is that we just want to value the relationships of our business and life more than anybody else. And so we got to be good stewards of them to get more. So we're doing it very different. We have management agreements in place for these initial franchisees. For some others, we'll actually do joint ventures. So if you are one of those bigger franchisees, we'll love to do a joint venture with you, right? To where we're actually a partner in the business together. We've got a nice structure for that. I've got an opportunity in the Mid-Atlantic with a great 50 to 100 unit franchisee already who wants to do that with us, who came to us because of our podcast. And then franchisees. Also, too, we're not going to have 1,000 franchisees. I like to have 10 great franchisees in the Southeast that buy 10 locations each. And over the next 10 years, we have 100 locations that I ideally are doing around 5 million in sales. And I think we've got a good business if we're doing that by that.
I love it. I love it. Tell me, you talk about this 26x concept, right? You call the restaurant business a 1x business. What is this 26x concept, and what's the playbook to get to that?
So 26x, 26 is our big cultural number. So, Chipotle, it was 13 for a long time. They had 13 characteristics. As a founder, you try to use things to unite. We've got shit yeah and some other different things that's there, but 26 is our big cultural number. And so I believe that every business, a great business, should have mission, vision, values, a brand promise, a great product, service model, profit model. All of that needs to be there. But I believe if you want to multiply that business, and what we say 26x it, right, is you have to value the relationships of that business and make that your X factor. I believe every business needs an X factor that really differentiates them. And the restaurant business is really, in my opinion, the worst steward of relationships because it's so demanding. It takes more people to produce the smallest amount of sales,
Right.
sales per man hour.
Right.
So, I believe I'm in this business because there's so many relationships. I've always wondered why I left growing up with a silver spoon life. I've been very blessed and favored in that to then go into such a hard business. But I truly believe it's because of the relationships that the restaurant business brings. And when you realize that, and you just realize, and you start valuing that, it's like the world starts working for you. And so for us, it's those 6 relationships, back to that shit yeah promise. And then just saying, what can you do for those different stakeholders that nobody else does? And for us, there's some things that we do. We've got our text program with the 26 Club. We're texting our customers all day, right? They're texting us, hey, good morning. Hope you're having a great day. Thousands of them. And there's some values that we have: lead with love, be a blessing, and give to grow. We believe that you need to give people what they want, right? And it should be a relationship all the way up to our investors. We've got a card that we give them to where they can use that at any of our locations. And so unlimited, if they want to run up a big old tab and have a party, I'll probably call them the next day and say, who is the big party with? But there's only so many perks you can give people of being an investor in this crazy business. And that's one of them. Same for our franchisees. So we're always looking on how can we give more to them. And I believe that's the secret of growth, is giving first.
Yeah, totally. I think you're such a unique person. You have so many great ideas. It seems like you're running tons of experiments as well. I'm sure that some things work, some things don't. And then as you've kind of learned, you've codified a lot of those principles into your brand ethos. So last question for you, kind of looking ahead, you're trying to sell franchises, you're expanding the business, you're getting more operationally savvy. What other things do you think are on the horizon for you that you're like absolutely excited to be working on?
Yeah, what's really cool is our vision statement is the restaurant business sucks. We're here to change it. And people are seeing that we're doing things different. I've got other restaurant groups and, locally here that are reaching out that actually want us to 26x their business, want us to help them figure out how they can focus on their stakeholders. And it just starts with giving, and it starts giving back to the service industry and their current employees and doing that. So I think the most exciting thing is through all the new relationships we get, it opens up another group of relationships in their sphere. And it just keeps on growing and growing. And so I believe that we don't get more we're not a good steward of. And I believe our greatest treasure in life are the relationships that we have. And you got to be a good steward of the ones that you currently have first. And that's our secret in the business. It's inside the 4 walls. take care of our team that's currently working, take care of our fans that are currently in the building, make them both say shit yeah. And then if we consistently do that, then they'll be bringing their friends, and then we won't have the issues that most people have in the restaurant business of not being able to be staffed. They'll be coming to us, and that's been proven. We have very, very, very low turnover. We have our pick of the litter of talent. It's really an incredible thing, and we're on the brink of 2026, which is our big cultural number, so big things to come.
Exciting.
26X.
Exciting. Chris, good luck to you. It seems like you're killing it. And thank you for everything that you do for our industry, to innovate, to push it forward, to give back. I'm really excited to see where you guys go. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you. God is
yes,
good.
Sir. Take care.
All right, bud. Bye.